Ronnie, let's get into some Rapala Bassmaster fantasy fishing picks. I will let you go through your A through E. Sounds like you're going pretty chalk. Few of my picks are
Yeah.
chalk as well. So give me your buckets A through E for Rapala Bassmaster fantasy fishing.
Well, I am going somewhat chalk. I do think on herring fisheries, blueback herring lakes, that's a different kind of advantage. It's like if you know tidal places, it's like if you know um I don't know, maybe it's like boulder fisheries where the boulders aren't moving and you can kind of know you know what's going to happen. With the blueback herring, you gotta have somewhat experience, especially if it's gonna be a part of the game plan like a herring spawn would be. It's hard to ignore the herring spawn and do well here. So
And
I've
I
got
would I would to go even further than that. I mean, think about how many guys talk about how much they hate herring fisheries. Like
they're
it's
puzzling at
kind
times,
of one of
yeah,
those deals. Like there's plenty of in between, like guys that have had success moderately here and there, but like there are guys that genuinely love herring fisheries, and there's guys that genuinely can't stand them. So to your point, certainly very hit or miss as far as guys' feelings towards these types of fisheries.
for sure. So I am somewhat chalk, more chalk than I've been in a long time. And so bucket A, I got Shane LeHew. Bucket B, Paul Marks. Bucket C, Emil Wagner. Bucket D, Brandon Cobb. And bucket E, I have Jeff Gustafson. Who's in your bucket A through E, and then we'll dissect.
We certainly share some. Bucket A, I'm going Shane LeHew. Bucket B was very tempted by Paul Marks, but I'm going Patrick Walters, even more chalk. Couldn't justify it. Bucket C, Emil Wagner, share that pick. Bucket D, Brandon Cobb. And Bucket E, just a gut feeling. I got Matt Robertson in Bucket E.
Okay, well, with LeHew, Wagner, and Cobb, we can all kind of explain it. But with Shane, I was torn a little bit. Jake Whitaker's been fishing really well, and when I am going chalk, there will be two or three anglers in each bucket that's like they could be considered chalk. I could switch out and substitute a couple people, and I still have a chalk lineup. And LeHew is lowly rated, 5.8%. You got Trey McKinney at 33 in this bucket. A couple guys with 7 with John Garrett and Kyoyo Fujita. 13 for Jay Shakirat. And Kyle Welcher was 6.5. So 5.8 for Shane LeHew. Thought that was good enough. And Jake is at 0.9%, just under 1%. So my thought here is there wasn't a tremendous difference in ownership percentage between my two chalk guys. If I looked at this whole bucket and you said, give me two chalk guys, LeHew and Whitaker, there's only a 4% gap between them, basically, then, or a 5% gap between them. That's a small enough gap that I can go with the higher one without feeling wrong. So 5.8%, I went with LeHew there. And did you have a similar thought process, or who was another angler you were considering?
Yeah, so for me, it was LeHew just based on number one, herring fisheries success at Hartwell, the 2019 Elite Series, top five there. Um, and he's obviously fishing well. And I don't know, it's to me, it's guys that I feel like can mix different things together. Like we were talking about, like having multiple patterns. Shane LeHew is so similar to Brandon Cobb in a lot of ways in that, you could easily see him having success early in the morning with a herring fish, and then also going up shallow and throwing a wacky worm, throwing a buzz bait, throwing a top water, doing whatever it may be up shallow to get a big largemouth bite. And we obviously know he's a very good sight fisherman. So if he's got some fish located on beds, I think that's another big player for him. But secondarily, I had Will Davis Jr. I
Mm.
think that ends up what ends up happening a lot, and we talk about this a lot in fantasy fishing, is like somebody has the hot hand and you just neglect them like all season long. I know we talked about this the last podcast.
I think it's
Um,
Hackney and Walters are the two that we just like pick until they like either get their act together or they screw up. You know, one of the two.
and Will Davis obviously has had a history of success at Hartwell, at herring fisheries, places that set up similar. You don't necessarily assume him to be a herring guy, but I mean, he's done well at both the South Carolina fisheries as such.
I could
Smith
see
Lake.
I can
I
see
mean,
Coosa
he's
River and Smith Lake success for Will Davis translating. So I like that pick as well.
Yeah, I
And he
think
likes to fish with his life jacket like Brian knew. So if he needs to run and gun, he always has it on. And
quick.
I'm like,
Yeah,
you're not at
agile.
a tail race, bro. Take it off.
Agile. So I could easily see Will Davis Jr. doing well here. Bucket B, you went against Patrick Walters. Why?
It's the same type of deal. If I picked out, there's actually like four chalk guys in this bucket, maybe five. This is kind of a loaded bucket actually with Christie and Cook. If you're thinking Spawn, there's
B is
two
loaded.
options.
B is very
Um,
loaded.
yeah, if you're thinking Christie, Cook for sight fishing, you can. If you're thinking just finesse fishing in general, Felix, Fouts, Taku are all here. You got Lester in there. It's a really, really good bucket. Brandon Polonick's in this bucket. Luke Palmer's done well here. But the chalk that I would consider would be Paul Marks, Patrick Walters, Tucker Smith, KJ Queen. So Tucker Smith isn't from here, but has fished a lot of fisheries like this and has fished plenty at Hartwell in tournaments over his b.a.s.s. time to know Hartwell very well, considers it one of his favorite lakes. And so Paul Marks, though, I love Patrick. There's a 40% pick difference between them. And when I was talking about two chalk guys, so I listed a bunch of guys that could be considered chalk. But if you had to narrow it down to just two, I'm going Walters and Paul Marks. And there's a 40% gap between them. I went with Paul Marks. He lives on herring fish all the time at Lake Lanier. That's what he's wired to do. Very good at doing so. He knows all the tricks. Walters knows all the tricks. It's not that I don't doubt Walters. I absolutely not. Probably well, I know he is one of my suggestions for live day one. So we should have, a camera in his boat most likely. But I think that Marks is about as equal as you could get to somebody like a Patrick Walters because of his extensive blueback herring knowledge and history here at Hartwell as well.
Yeah, no, I think Paul Marks is a very, very good pick. And for him to be as low as he is, player percentage wise, 4.2%, certainly a risk possibly worth taking there. I just couldn't go against Patrick Walters. Um, it just seems too good to be true. A bad, uncharacteristically tough tournament at Pasquotank River. Don't see that very often from him, but I think he's going to bounce back in a big way. And to me, I'm on the opposite side of the fence with the percentages. Like, I think that percentage is so high that it's like if you pick against it and lose, you know,
Yeah,
44,
that's
almost half
yes.
the players are beating you. But if Paul Marks does well, or, one of those other guys you mentioned, then that's a huge win as well. So I'm going with the higher percentage, Patrick Walters. If he was at 1%, I would pick him. If he was at 100%, I would probably pick him. So I'm going
I
Walters.
I love Walters. There's not been a bigger cheerleader saying how great Walters is before he actually showed his greatness at Bassmaster than me. Like literally knew him so well, watching him competing against him and being friends with him that I'm not shocked his career trajectory. I will say if last year's rookie class was overall fantastic, this year's rookie class might be the best blueback herring rookie class we'll ever have. Tucker Smith, Paul Marks, Emil Wagner, Cody Meyer. Like
Well,
there's just
when
so many really good guys. You could go all rookies, and we could have five rookies in the top 10. No joke on the final day. I wouldn't be shocked. This is their
100%.
tournament. Yeah.
That is one thing to be said, and I wrote that in my fantasy column. Like, this is certainly a tournament where you could definitely justify picking a lot of rookies. Um,
And it's
Number
not
one,
and it's
like you
not
said,
forward facing. It is they
they
are
just
so good
all,
with it, but they're all blueback herring specialists,
no doubt.
which goes that means they have to use their electronics more, which means they're more dialed into it. It's just it's a cause and effect. I fish
Just
on
to
a
put
blueback
in
herring fishery. I'm gonna be good with electronics. It's hard to do both unless you're fishing blueback herring lakes that have spotted bass and you're only fishing largemouth. Like that's the only way you can avoid that.
to put in perspective too, like we've talked a lot throughout the season about our predicting each rookie's highest finish of the season, like what Elite Series top.
I think I put
When
him.
you go through the list, like of every rookie, you're like, well, Hartwell is really what I want to do. but I'll do something else just to be different. It's like you could justify putting Hartwell down for like pretty much every single one of the rookies, and you'd feel pretty confident about it, especially the younger guys when you're talking about Marks, Wagner, Tucker Smith,
Easton listed
Easton
as his favorite
Fothergill.
lake. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I wrote about that in my column as well. Like claims it's his favorite lake, and he's on a roll. So if you want to go with some rookies, this would probably be the time to do it. But Bucket C, speaking of Emil Wagner, we both went with Emil. I think that the logic is still the exact same as the way you mentioned for Marks. Obviously, a Lake Lanier guy, not hard to justify, him potentially having a big event here. Um, would not be surprising at all to see him on the final day. And definitely didn't sneak under the radar as much as you might have hoped. That his percentage was lower, 12.8% right now. You've got Jordan Lee at 20.8, Justin Hamner at 24.4, Stetson at nearly 10. So, obviously a couple guys taking up a large percentage of the playing percentage there. But Emil Wagner at 12.8, definitely not as sneaky as maybe we were hoping he would be in Bucket C.
I was just hoping people didn't scroll all the way to the bottom of the bucket. They
Yeah.
picked it before they got to the bottom. But no, Emil, fantastic. I think one thing about these young guys, they knew how to do the herring spawn and fish for blueback herring eaters without electronics. Silver top waters, quick jointed swim baits, flukes, shaky heads, whatever. They did that without it, and now they've learned how to do the herring spawn with it. And that I don't expect there to be a drop off. Like that's where it's not like, oh, you have to find the best spot on the lake. No, they have to find good spots that they can make great by maximizing what they see with their eyes and then what they see on their graph. So Emil, absolutely fantastic fisherman, great guy as well. And he keeps it very simple. He keeps it very simple. And that's probably a good thing. Just like this guy in Bucket D, Brandon Cobb, we both have him picked the guy with the most tangible info and expertise at this lake. And he knows how to balance a game plan very well. If he can just not be so darn negative to himself about a tough practice day or whatever, then Cobb would be in a lot of tournaments. I heard that he was just negative at the Pasquotank and he didn't do well. Like if he just doesn't let himself get negative on an off day, this one's it's there for you. It's on the tee, and they give you a bat, just take a good swing. And so I think you could see him instead of necessarily mixing the game plans. I'll see him mix the game plans for sure, but I could see him start the tournament um, either on sight fish specifically and that be his day one game plan, or opposite end of the lake on the herring spawn, like type of deal. So we'll see how he mixes it, but the timing will be critical for Cobb. And I didn't even care who else was in his bucket. The only bucket that would be poor would be if he was matched with Patrick Walters, and then I have to think about it pretty good.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Brandon Cobb, it's hard to envision a tournament where he's not able to perfectly mix the two, herring spawn and fishing shallow, spawning fish. Same way I just described with LeHew. I mean, whether it be a wacky rig like he won the 2019 event, that was a big part of his game plan. Top water, you could easily see him doing that up shallow with a buzzbait, popper, things like that. Um, I don't know. It's just hard to imagine Brandon Cobb not having a big event here. Um, as good as he is at Hartwell, as good as he is in the springtime, and just as good as he is in general, even despite the 34.5% player percentage. What's crazy about Bucket D, like we already talked about Easton Fothergill, so it's not to say we haven't even discussed it, but Easton's picked at a higher percentage than Cobb is, which like again, I get it. I think Easton's going to have a great event too.
I'm not
But, like
touching that though.
that's crazy. Like that's just a crazy thought to think that.
71% between two of them.
Yeah, and again, I could see either of them. I mean, I could see them both being in the top 10 and it being a matter of like one place between them. That wouldn't surprise me whatsoever. But it was just surprising to see that many people are going with Easton over Brandon Cobb in that bucket. Not that like, not that picking Brandon Cobb in bucket D is like going out on a limb, but you're like, he's not even the highest percentage player in the bucket. Like that's crazy. Um, but moving on, bucket E. Who did you have in bucket E again?
I got Gussie.
I like it. I like it.
He's got to turn it around. You know, Gussie's had a poor three events to start his Elite Series, not career, Elite Series season. But this is his style. You know, he spent a few days at Lanier, like a lot of our anglers did, to kind of get prepped. There were some anglers fishing a tournament at Norman, some went to Murray, some went to Lanier, whatever fits your fancy. But Gussie, if they're not smallmouth, he wants to fish for spotted bass on lakes like Hartwell. So I expect him to do well. Um, you know, the only other person I probably considered in this would be Jason Williamson. He is a South Carolinian and a blueback specialist as well. I think that Gussie knows. I think a lot of Bucket E guys know, but I think Gussie knows right now that he's got to catch him right here. Like this is the you don't catch him right here, and you're in Bucket E, you're done. Like there's hard. You're gonna be hard pressed with four elites in the books if you haven't caught them at least halfway in a tournament yet, gotten close to the cut line. There's no classic shot unless you catch them this week. So I think they've got to catch them, and Gustafson is my pick for this style
I like it. That is certainly a good pick, and I dig it. Matt Robertson for me. When I was going through making my picks, I just made that one completely based on gut instinct.
because he's
No,
had on him tournaments at Hartwell.
no, not even that. To be completely honest with you, it never crossed my mind once. It was
When you
basically
said it, that was
thinking.
the first thing I thought was, well, he does have tournaments, he'll say.
Never even crossed my mind. I know exactly what you're talking about, but like when I made the pick, it just like I saw his name and I thought, my goodness, like I don't know, like at 5% at the time, I was like, I feel like that's a really solid pick. But then you go look at his tournament results there, and like it's not nothing, just crazy. Like you look back, an Open in 2020 finished 66th, 2022 Open 51st. Let's see. Um 46th at the Classic in Greenville. I mean, out of 50 some odd anglers, not great. Um, it's just 100% a gut feeling for me. Saw what he was able to do at Murray.
He can't drive an hour and a half from weigh in here, so that's a good thing.
So I don't know. I just got Matt Robertson. I think he's going to bounce back at Hartwell. There are plenty of good choices in Bucket E of guys you could easily justify. Obviously, Greg Hackney being a guy that coming off a win at the NPFL on Norman, could easily see him doing well. But every time I pick him, I think I'm like his bad luck charm. So at this point, I'm just like rooting for his success by not picking him, because I think I've been his bad luck so far. But a lot of guys in Bucket E that you could certainly justify, but I'm just strictly going on a gut feeling, and I'm going with Matt Robertson.
I like it. So overall, my five were I just closed out of it, but it was Shane LeHew, Paul Marks, Emil Wagner, Brandon Cobb, Jeff Gustafson, bucket A
Correct.
through E. And I closed my eyes because it helps me remember, just like when you turn down the
Yeah.
volume, when you're trying to make a turn on a road, when you're
Yeah.
driving.
I can't turn that down. I can't see straight.